Hello, everyone. Welcome at Adoption Change Management Teams Europe monthly meeting. Today we see each other at the November. Hope there's many people right now on the other side of the screen. So let us know from where are you coming from in a comment and what we prepared for you today. Yeah. All right, so our today's meeting is divided on two parts. The first part, amazing one, first-hand experiences in doing adoption change management projects outside your home country. So you will hear different experiences coming from Carolina Ketukari, Michael Roth, and Amanda Sterner. And the second part of our today's meeting is a panel discussion with our amazing guests, Antje Lamartine and Adam Deltinger, and me as another person of this panel discussion. And at the end, great. And at the end, of course, you can ask questions. We will try to answer. We will try to share our best practices with you. Who we are. Of course, we already know these faces. So Carolina, Alex, Amanda, Michael, and Edyta, we are coming from different countries and we are doing adoption change management projects. And we are just hosting this ACM Teams Europe user group for you. All right, and let's move to the first part of our meeting, first-hand experiences in doing adoption change management projects outside your home country.
Okay, so let's get started. And before we dive into three different views of this from me, Carolina, and Michael, we just wanted to share these rules of happiness, because something that we find really important to talk about when we're talking about cultural differences is that cultural differences, that isn't something bad. It's something that we need to be aware of so we can learn and make each other better. So when I saw this how to respect other cultures 101 on Twitter a couple of months ago, we started to draft this topic, and I thought, this is really good. We need to save it and we need to share it when we're talking about this topic. So these rules, they're more general, but we're going to talk about it from a project view. But this could be applied to like any normal situation outside of work as well. So first one is know and reflect on your own culture. So just because my culture does something, or we do something specific in my country, it doesn't mean that that's the only way. It doesn't mean that that's the best way. So it's really important to be aware and reflect, because that's how you learn the best. Okay, educate yourself and learn what you can do. So what I mean with this, or what we think about when we say this, is that you have to be educated, and the more you understand about the people you work with that come from other cultures, the easier it will be to create magic. Okay, keep an open mind, and now you remove the slide. Keep an open mind and under your own bias. Yeah, so it's really easy to think that my way is the best way, and the way we do something that I'm used to is the best way, and that's not how it is. So always reflect on how you do things, and on the biases you have towards other people, and be aware, because it's important to reflect and acknowledge and appreciate cultural differences. So all of these different rules, they tie together really well, but think about other people and how we can become stronger as one instead of divided and put towards each other. And the last one, become an ally. I think that's probably more outside of the work sphere, but I find that's important too. So just remember to keep an open mind. Um, don't get too stuck on your own views, and yeah, it can only get better when we do things together, because one is not an island. So let's have a look at some real life examples, starting with, I think it's Carolina.
Yeah, it's me. Thank you, Amanda. It was a super nice introduction to our theme today, and I think I love our team today, because it's as we said in the introduction, we are all from different countries. We do things a bit differently, so it's a nice idea to maybe a bit compare what are the cultural differences in modern work and user adoption around Europe. So my name is Karuna Kettukari, and I'm from Finland. I come from Finland, and I just wanted to share a few points about Finnish organizational culture and what's typical for. Hi, Marcin. What's typical for organizations in Finland, and how does it differ from user adoption projects I've done, for example, Finnish companies who have departments or locations outside Finland, or then whole another companies who are not at all based in Finland. So in Finland, of course, these are generalizations, but usually we have pretty low hierarchy. So we don't have these steps of we want to climb through when we want to, for example, see a manager. So hierarchy is very low. Companies are not that they may have like large structural organizations, but it's pretty easy to get time with managers. It's easy to get time with management boards, and just to talk with your supervisor or just talk with your manager is pretty easy in Finland. And if you compare the situation, for example, the situation companies have in Germany, the hierarchy is much more evident in Germany, or at least the whole Central Europe, I think. And if we want to start a user adoption project in Finland, we can go to some low-level IT manager, or maybe just some team leader, for example, who wants to discover something new for her or his team. But for example, in Germany, maybe we have to go the other way around. We have to know certain people, and we have to be at the top of the organization to get our projects ongoing. The other prominent thing in Finland is that we are pretty progressive in technology and tools, and that means that we are using, for example, Teams, SharePoint quite a lot. We have all mobile phones. We have internet everywhere. Also in the like Lapland, high up north in Finland. So the basics are there. But when we are then thinking, are we really utilizing all of those tools? Are we really utilizing our mobile phones? Maybe we are not. So even if we are on the cloud, we are more on the cloud compared to many other countries, that doesn't mean that we are in generally in a better place. We just have the tools, but then comes to the user adoption, do we really use those tools in the best possible way? The third thing in Finland, I think I really love this one, is that competence is usually more valued than your title. And that also means that if we are talking about user adoption project or change management project, you don't have to be the manager, or you don't have to be the change management expert by your title. You just need to be an expert in your own area of expertise, in your own topic, and that's enough. And this has been a different situation, for example, sorry, no COVID. In some other projects I have done in Western Europe, because there has been situations that the title matters a lot, and it can be a really different situation if you say you are a consultant, or if you say that you are a senior consultant or a business consultant. So you really have to know the ways the different countries work, and then use, for example, titles in a certain way. And the fourth thing when we think about the culture in Finland and user adoption in Finland is that people in here, we are super honest, we are outspoken, we keep our promises, we are very punctual. Maybe not that punctual as Germany, maybe Michael will talk about more about that, but we do what we say. And this has also been a pretty different story in some other countries and in some other projects. For example, if I send a calendar invite in Finland, they will come to my meeting. But in some other countries, for example, I have to send the calendar invite to their manager, and then the manager decides if the person will come to the meeting. So small things that may be a big difference. Okay, off to you, Michael.
Thank you very much. And of course, I'm going to talk about punctuality. Hey, everybody, I'm Michael. I'm from Germany, and I wanted to share some experience I've made with working in an adoption and change management specialist in France for a French customer. And that was really, really exciting for me because, yeah, I wanted to keep it short and simple, and I have two major issues that we had, like with each other, so to say, and there was meeting behavior and communication. And just as Amanda quoted at the beginning, that's not like which is the best way or which is the way that works better, but it's just something that I learned, that things are different, and that's totally okay. And it was actually fun learning those things and reflecting on those things. So meeting behavior. Yeah, Carolina kind of spoiled it. In Germany is a lot about punctuality and like keeping promises and stuff like that. And I had the experience that every other time I was attending a meeting, regardless whether it an online meeting or like an in-person meeting, it was pre-COVID, I was always pretty much the first one in the meeting room. And for quite a time, actually, for like 10 to 12 minutes, I was sitting there all on my own, and I felt kind of alone and left out. And there was a weird feeling in the beginning, actually. And all the others attended, of course, but way after me, like 10 to 15 minutes after me. And they came in the meeting room. They have met already outside the room, and they were chatting and laughing, having a good time. And I was always like, what, we had a meeting like 15 minutes ago. Where have guys been? And that kind of left me a little bit puzzled, so to say. And I just recognized it without trying to not putting too much pressure on it. And now let me include the other thing, the communication thing. I had actually a hard time connecting to different colleagues and users from our customers because, and I learned that after a while, after I get to know each other, the colleagues after a while a little bit better, and they were kind of honest with me after a few beers, actually, and they said I was considered to be rude and not very friendly. And I was actually surprised because I consider myself to be kind of friendly, and I asked why do you think that? And it was not what I was thinking at first. It was not about knowing things like facts or professional behavior. That not at all. I was the expert on the topic, and everybody agreed on that, and that was all fine. But the other people just didn't enjoy to talk to me at all. And so we were talking through this, and it was quite interesting because if you get reflected your behavior in a way that people don't like to talk to you, and you try to work on an adoption and change management project where you just want to spark excitement and joy and excitement about the new tools, that can be quite a challenge, actually, and it was. And now I would like to come back to Amanda's rules, or to the first rule, actually. The first one was a pretty important one for me, the know and reflect your own culture. Of course, I know all the stereotypes about German working behavior at the working place, but I always thought, yeah, the German is considered to be like punctual and efficient and focusing on tasks only. And I always thought, yeah, I know that, but that's not me. That are all the others. I'm kind of different. But talking to people and working with people from different countries, I learned that I am very German at the end. And so I learned that those stereotypes apply to me to a certain level. And the fun fact was that all my colleagues brought it to me and explained it to me with, we had quite a fun time. If you could go one slide ahead, please. Maybe I think you know all these, all these jokes that you can find about working with Germans. I mean, that was a little bit fast. Yeah. I got those jokes from my colleagues and I was like, what is the blue color in the German flag standing for? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And of course, the German, the blue color in the German flag is about all the fun and the humor we have while working, where the other three colors are for like work. The other one is like, there was this one, and I like this one and use this one quite often. How many Germans does it take to change a light bulb? Well, one, because we are efficient and we don't have any humor. And I thought that was really, really funny. And with kind of this communication and humor, actually, we learned where we differ in working styles and behaviors. And it took us a while. And then we tried to figure out the best way how to work with each other, to collaborate. And after we did, and we found out what it's all about, the adoption and change part became very easy, actually, because if you're just aware of your own working styles and reflect the working styles of your coworker to them, that just creates a space where everybody is open and aware of it. And then after that, you can talk about things and you can start to solve things, actually. And we had a very successful project in the end, and we had very much fun, which was surprising to my coworkers from France. But I think the point I really want to emphasize here is that know and reflect your own culture and talk about it. Like every time, communication is key. And but the reflecting part, that really was a thing for me that is so important. And I think that pretty much sums up my experiences with in France with an ACM project.
Okay, then it's time for my example. And it seems like we stopped sharing oh, there it is, my lovely, lovely picture. And I wanted to share a specific scenario that happened that I was a part of a couple of years ago. So a couple of years ago, I haven't been working for that long. So I would say not very experienced. I worked for probably 1 or 2 years, and I was a part of this big project. And it was for a Swedish client, but we engaged a lot with both people in Germany and people in France. And just as Carolina said when she talked about Finland, Sweden we don't have a lot of hierarchies. If I would like to write a text message or a chat message to the president of my company, that maybe he wouldn't answer it because he's busy, but it wouldn't be weird and it wouldn't be frowned upon. So not having working for that long, I was only thinking about what I'm used to, my image of the world, how things work in Sweden, and I didn't even reflect on that it could be different in different countries, which might be naive, but I mean, hey, you develop every day. So I was going to send an important email to one of the managers and I don't remember if it was France or Germany, but one of those two, about a big decision. And in Sweden, for that scenario, I would have gotten the name for the person, for someone. I think it was maybe the marketing director or marketing manager. And I would have drafted the email and I would have sent it. So that's exactly what I did. I said, hello, boop, boop, boop. My name is Amanda. This is my role. This is what I'm doing. And this is the help or support or decision making I need from you. I didn't find that weird. So I sent the email and I don't know if it was only just a couple of hours or if it was a few days, but then my responsible, my interaction point at the client, she called me and said, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't just send an important email directly to the manager. You have to go the correct way. You're not on the say pay level as her. You have to you cannot talk to people that's not on your level." And that was really shocking to me, since I hadn't thought about the concept of people being in like different levels and not being able to interact with each other. But this ended up with her thinking that I was not playing the game right, that I was unpolitical and not doing it correctly. It ended up with me having to talk to my counselor at work about, "Hey, Amanda, you can't do this. You have to feel the situation at the client." And it ended up with me understanding that, okay, maybe I need to be a little bit aware of how different cultures work. And just because something works in one way in Sweden, it doesn't mean that you can do exactly the same thing in another culture, since they might not like it. And just like I said in the beginning, with the rules, reflect and understand. And now I do understand this, but and when working with different cultures going ahead, I always think about, okay, is there something that is different from how we do it in Sweden or not? So that was a short story, and just something that I wanted to add. I know that we're talking about cultural differences now between different countries, but of course we have differences in our own countries as well. I worked with clients in Sweden as well that are really like levels and think that I'm too senior to talk to you. So of course you could end up in that situation as well, but I find it a little bit less common, at least, that happens here in Sweden. So yeah, cultural differences, it's interesting, and be aware of it. Yeah. So do we have any other reflections here, Karlina or Michael, about how it is before we move on to our exciting panel discussion?
I think those were very interesting real life stories from Michael and Amanda, so thank you. And I think what Amanda said about you can also have cultural differences within your own country, depending on the organization. And for example, if a American organization comes to Finland, they might have a pretty different culture in Finland, even though they are in the same country. So it's a good point as well.
Yeah. And I see we have this interesting question, but I'm thinking maybe we could save it for our panel and see if we have any other interesting point of views from our guests. So let's jump over to that. Okay, and welcome to our nice panel members. So we have our fantastic guest stars, Adam Deltinger and Antje Lamartine. I'm going to let you introduce yourself soon. And we have our own team member here, Edyta, as well. So let's get started with our first thing. So I thought if you could present yourself. So if you tell me your name, what you do, and a question that we would like to ask all of our new guest stars here in our group is, what's your best tips for adoption and change management in Microsoft 365 products? Let's start with Antje.
Hi, Amanda. Hi, Edyta and Adam. Thank you very much for having me on the show. This is really fun. My name is Antje Lamartine. I was born and raised in Munich, Germany, and I have spent more than 20 years in the United States, and I've been back to Munich now for about 2.5 years. Have been working with Microsoft for the past 10 years, and my focus was pretty early on adoption and change. So I do M365 implementations and everything in between.
Okay, let's give us your best change management and adoption tip before we move over to Adam.
Yeah, the best. I don't know if it's not easy to say the best tip, but I've always found that if you do have executive sponsorship, not just in theory, but in practice, things are much easier and your chance at success is much higher. So that might be the top tip, even though there are plenty others that immediately come to my mind, but exec sponsorship is key.
Okay, Adam, who are you?
Hi, first of all, thank you so much for letting me be part of this. I'm Adam Deltinger. I'm a senior consultant from Malmö in Sweden, working at Edyta. Basically, I help customers implement and adapt to modern collaboration tools and services, and also way of working. And yeah, basically in plain English, that's from a technical perspective, I do migrations, for example, from Skype to Teams and stuff like that, and also working on a more softer side, like with end user adoption, basically do training, workshopping, and stuff like that as well. I'm also a MVP in Office Services and Apps category, and yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Okay, so what's your best tip for adoption and change management in Microsoft 365?
Yeah, well, if there was one, we wouldn't be sitting here, would we? But, I would say plainly, don't let adoption be about don't let that be an IT project. Let that be a project for the whole business. I would say that's my biggest tip right now.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a question, and then we'll see. I think we have some interesting ones from the chat here. So, Antje, tell me about the typical ACM project in your country. Who are the people you engage with, and yeah, how does a typical adoption and change management project look?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I've been wondering, is there such a thing as a typical project? And I'm really not sure there is, but I can tell you that a lot of times I actually come into the project through the IT side. I'm a senior customer success manager at If Blueprint, so I have a lot of tech co-workers, tech consultants, and they go into projects and then they bring me along at some point, because the awareness for adoption and change is usually not the first things companies think about. But especially since COVID-19 forced many companies into sending their people home to work from home. So lately, Teams was turned on in a lot of companies, and literally it was, what's the right terminology? It was rolled out, but not really implemented. And so some of my projects right now are really involving, okay, we turned this whole thing on. What are we going to do now? So it's kind of a two-track engagement. On one hand, tying it in and putting governance in place from the technical side. And then on the other hand, really helping the end users, regardless at what level they are in a company, to really grasp all the changes and be a little bit less afraid, which right now is tough because we live in uncertain times and it's really hard to work from home. And so this right now is a typical project for me in Germany.
Yeah. And talking about that topic, Edyta, do you think it's more common that you come in doing an IT project, or what's the most common way for you to come in doing change?
Looking at the projects I'm having right now, or I did in the past, they come from IT or from HR. So mostly these two groups. I would say half. This is something important what Antje mentioned, that current times, they force the companies to start Teams rollouts and so on. Therefore, quite often looking at the Polish market, IT is very engaged in this adoption change management projects. However, when I look at the Polish way, how we organize this kind of projects, we always have two paths. The first one, technical one, so this technical readiness and the adoption part, and they really align together. So it's quite logic, right? That one thing triggers another thing and so on. However, mostly these two ways of Teams adoption projects, and I really like to be a part of both of them. To have a control as an adoption specialist, where are we right now from this technical side, and how we can set up the next steps of adoption. Because when we start the projects, we already have a scope, we have kind of typical, let's say, approach. However, it changes very often, especially when the customers, they decide to switch off, switch on some features on Teams side, and then we need to reschedule the whole communication, reschedule the champions program start, and so on. So this is very, very, I would say, very sometimes ad hoc decisions. What are we going to do, and what will be the best adoption activity on this field where we are right now from the technical side?
Yeah. Adam, do you have anything to add to the topic? What's most common in Sweden, would you say? Is it?
No, I would say, I mean, much has been said, but I mean, I agree on what has been said about, it's mostly coming from some decision maker made a decision about implementing something, and it lands basically on the IT department, and Antje, you said something about it's rolled out but not implemented, and that's a thing right now. Like before, that was used all the time. You rolled out an application, for example, and that was it, right? Nowadays, it doesn't work really that way. You roll something out. Let's, for example, say roll out Microsoft Teams. It's really easy. I mean, you can do that in no time. On the technical perspective, it's not that hard. So many says, all right, we're done. We roll out the application, right? But what about the actual implementation, the actual, it's all about the end user adoption, the training, and all that comes with it. And that's like equally, if not more than important than having the application itself on the desktop, So, I mean, I see that a lot, and that's a struggle, an everyday struggle, I would say.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I think let's take a question from the chat here. I can see we have one about cultural stereotypes. Can we get that on screen? Yeah, perfect. So how do you cope with cultural stereotypes? Have they prevented you from achieving? And what are good management strategies if there are cultural clashes? So let's start with Edyta this time. What do you say?
It's a hard question. I'm not sure how should I understand this cultural stereotypes in terms of the project. I would say rather internal cultural stereotypes, like working with the public sector and working with the private sector. Actually, it depends on the people, of course, behind, but it's kind of visible that in this public sectors, in the public sector institutions, sometimes the resistance to change is even higher, and people, they just want to have job done and that's it. So it's harder to find champions. It's harder to engage the others. It's harder to find out any enthusiasm around this project. I'm just saying this based on my experience. Maybe I don't have that big experience. However, this is my impression when we talk about the stereotypes. So how to prevent? It's everything about the communication and good understanding. I would say that the best prevention is just to understand and motivate people even harder if we know that this resistance to change may appear. It's about talking, but first of all about listening and asking questions. quite often to understand what is the true pain inside, what are the true pain points, because very often at the very first sight they are saying something, yeah, we have pain with this or that, but when we start asking and asking more, then we are discovering what kind of pains are behind and how to model this adoption journey together to get the success at the end, right? So this is my point of view.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I answered your question.
I mean, and I think it's relevant to think about the different kind of cultural differences as well. Not only Sweden, Finland, but also, like you said, the public sector and not. So, Antje, what do you think about? Do you have any? How do you cope with stereotypes?
So I usually walk into meetings and projects with my own golden rule, which is I'm always assuming good intent on the part of the other person. And I'm always trying to keep in mind that the person could know much more about a topic than I do. And it kind of sets the stage for me to really go into a conversation very relaxed, and it doesn't really matter to me at what level in a company someone is working. It could be the CEO, it could be somebody in the mail room, just assuming that they're an expert about something that I know nothing about, and that they bring good intent. So this is how I deal with that question. Then I can't see it anymore, but I think what was the second part about
what are good management strategies?
Thank you. Good management strategy. So the second question I find is interesting. If they prevented you from achieving, it's not as much what I achieve, because I usually come in as the person helping the process along. The change really has to come from within the company. So in the end, when you cannot figure out these differences and, like Edyta said, really understand what the real pain points are, it really prevents the organization and the people from achieving or from wrapping their mind around this new thing, whatever the new thing is. So because in the end the change has to come from within, so I often see myself more a shepherd of these new things and helping them along. And the good management strategy for culture clashes, well, obviously you have to understand, as Edyta said, what the pain points are, have to be aware of who and what the different sides are, and maybe sometimes a little bit self-education, or also education on the team about these different cultural pieces is really good thing as well.
I really like that, having that as a key rule, that other people, they come with good intent. I think that's really valuable, and I'm gonna think about it, because people, yeah, it makes life a little bit nicer when you think it in that way. Okay, yeah. So Adam, have you ever gotten in a situation in a project where you had to juggle cultural differences?
Yeah, I mean, I think a good example was with the private sector versus public sector, and I've been working a lot with, for example, municipalities. It's our word, and I mean, very often the hierarchy is it's a lot bigger hierarchy on working with the public sector, in my experience, and making it more difficult to reach and get in contact with the correct business decision makers, and have that kind of quick contact. When you talked about achieving what could be a bad thing regarding that is that when there are so long processes between making decisions, and it could be just such an easy thing like just getting contact with someone or finding the correct person for something, that can really hurt achieving and I mean the project overall. In these cases, I usually say, like, trying to get a project manager on the customer side is a really good thing here, that really takes on the responsibility of making sure they have the correct persons and the correct stakeholders and the decision makers and such. That can really make it a lot easier, actually. Yeah, I mean. I mean, then I mean, there's a lot of when you talk about cultural differences, and as you said, it's not about like countries and stuff like that. It's just small things. I mean, for example, in Sweden, we have a kind of a flat hierarchy, and usually makes it easier this way. But it's still a struggle, and there's a lot of differences from business to business. So you kind of have to, when you get into the project, when you kind of get to know the customer, you have to kind of have the feel this and how easy is the customers, how does this organization work, and such things like that, and kind of get a feeling for how you can proceed in the best way possible.
So maybe we can all agree on that. Every project is different, and you always have to go in with an open mind. Yeah. Okay, let's take another question. Perfect. So, does the level of resistance to change vary from country to country? And I think when we talk about like most of the discussions we had now had also been about different kind of countries, different kind of companies in our countries. So let's continue with that discussion because that's really interesting. So have you found some countries more resistant to change, or some kind of companies more resistant to change? Antje, I can see that you're nodding your head, so I know you want to say something.
I'm smiling. Edie's laughing too. I think we already had many conversations when we were still able to meet over this topic. So I lived in the United States for a really long time, and I found it interesting what Michael said earlier about being too German. In the United States, I was always the German, and now I'm in Germany, and I find myself to be very American. But I always liked it in the US when you came into a department and you showed them something and there was interest and they were willing to listen. And now I mean, it might not always lead to something, right? But at least they're open to it and they take a look at it. And in Germany, we have very strong hierarchies. We already heard that earlier. In Germany, it seems to be, well, this sounds very interesting. Let me hear, I'm not sure. But oftentimes the first thing you hear is really, yeah, but what about this? But what about that? What about this rule? What about data security? What about GDPR? Instead of really seeing the opportunities that could be. And the reality is, I mean, there is no perfect solution for anything. But oftentimes I have to say, I just wish I could shake the person across from me and saying, just see the glass half full just for once, please, please. But I have to say I'm working on 2 large projects now, both companies about 10,000 people worldwide, and I'm working with them in Germany, and both of them are very hierarchical. And on one department, IT kind of has an idea that they have to do something, but I came in through the business side. And in the other company, it's the IT department that really realizes that something has to change. But it oftentimes is a struggle in Germany to actually get people excited about something new. And I think that's just in our nature, maybe because we are very structured, right? And there's nothing wrong with it, but that's just how we roll.
Okay, but then it seems like you've discussed this a lot. So Edyta, do you have any other things to add here in this interesting topic?
Yeah, I'm happy that Poland and Germany in this topic are very similar, because we have a lot of space to change our opinions. Yeah, it's similar in Poland. This hierarchy, it's quite extended. And of course, the GDPR, this resistance, we need to check it out, check it is, and a lot of obstacles while starting this kind of project. Sometimes I have a feeling that, yeah, that was exciting only at the beginning, and then we are just fighting on every step. However, when you talk about the resistance to change, I'm this talkative person, very optimistic. So sometimes people look at me and they think, is she mentally healthy enough? Because she's so more excited than we are about this change, but she's not working in our company at the end. So it's really hard to copy paste this Microsoft US excitement methods to Polish markets. I mean, people, they are not excited about the stickers. Yeah, I'm getting the sticker. I'm super great while using Teams in Teams, for instance. It's okay, it's nice, but the excitement, it's not that big as we may expect. So in Poland, it's especially about education. So when we start to implement Teams or start to implement just a few features of Teams because of the security reasons, the project's code and so on, we really want to inform the end users what's going on and what will be the next step. In my opinion, this is the only one way, especially in this large project, the big ones, where is the big resistance to change, to show the people that seriously we are doing our best, be patient, and here is the kind of roadmap for the future steps. Therefore, when they feel informed, we can count that the next steps, I mean, the whole rollout will be successful. Of course, it's not guaranteed. Sorry. It's not guaranteed, however, it's a kind of way, this informative way.
Very interesting. And now I'm very, very eager to hear what Adam says about this topic and this question.
Yeah, well, first of all, like resistance to change is not that much about culture, is more about human nature, right? But it's of course more or less based on culture. I mean, I'm born and raised in Sweden. I've been working mostly with Swedish customers. So I can't call myself an expert in this area. But I think what's been mentioned already several times, it's about managers, for example, in Sweden. I mean, their role is not, of course, is to manage as well, but their role is also to empower, their employees in, I think, in another way than it's in other countries, for example. And about the hierarchy that we've been talking about as well. I mean, that usually means also there's more defined silos, making it harder to communicate between them and such, which can make things more difficult when it comes to get a project on board and complete a project regarding to if there's a hiccup. It takes so much time to sort that out and yet again find the right persons and get answers, and you know who you're going to have that communication with. But I mean, I think more or less, we struggle with the same things. But of course, as with the things we've already mentioned here several times already, these things gets harder to solve the more complex it gets when you have more of those boundaries and silos and stuff like that.
I just want to add to that, because you just said the boundaries and silos. I think in the end, and this is why I'm wearing this t-shirt today, by the way, I think in the end it comes down to community. So if you really want to bring a change and you want people to make it easier to accept the change, you have to be aware that it's a really, really tough job. You can likely not do it by yourself, so you should build a community around you within the company, right? So I mean, you can compare it to the Champions program if you want to, but really where the people can inspire each other, and then also where you have an external community, because the learning and adapting to the change doesn't only go on within the workplace but also beyond, right? So I think community is one of the key facts in helping people embrace something new.
I agree. That's a really important factor. I mean, that goes with just as you said, a Champions program, but having a project, of course, needs to be from it has to be made decisions that often comes from the top, but it also needs to be this from from the bottom, with the end users actually feeling interest of what's happening and what's going on. And that's why it's so important to have kind of a communication plan, training plans, Champions programs and all that, and kind of build this community on top of that as well. Yeah, very important.
And then I think when you build the community, all the different all the differences in culture, whatever, they become secondary anyway, because you get to know each other on a different level.
Yeah, and I mean, when we work as consultants, even how much we feel as one of the team, we will always be a consultant and a little bit of an alien. So very, very good, good and interesting discussions. Okay, I think we have a few minutes left, and I saw this question. We are getting so many nice questions from Teams Nation. For those of you who don't know that, that's a fantastic user group about Microsoft Teams. Adam is one of the co-hosts for it, so be sure to check out Teams Nation here on YouTube and on Twitter for broader topics that covers everything around Microsoft Teams. Okay, so back to the question here, and I think this is a question for the ladies here, and we'll see, maybe Adam, if you have something valuable to add. But has respect for gender ever been an issue when conducting adoption projects in other countries, or in your own countries? I mean, as well. Silence.
So I've never felt disrespected because I was female. So I don't think it's as much a matter of adoption and change. I think adoption and change is anyways a topic where you deal a lot with human beings and emotions. So I think women are naturally, or well, okay, I don't want to stereotype, but I am, but we're good at it. So in that respect, I've never felt disrespected. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. That's not even a question I would think about. I mean, if you see, I'm lowering my head. I have some gray hair, so one of the things that I've noticed is not the disrespect necessarily for the gender, but it's more the disrespect, or not the disrespect, but kind of the caution when it's somebody younger who walks into the room. I mean, I've been with a coworker on a project. She's in her 20s. I have quite some gray hair, and she would say something, and it would not get through to the males or to the group of people in the room. And I would say the same thing in a different way, and all of a sudden it was heard. So I don't really think it's as much a gender question, but I think there are a lot of different facets to it. I don't know, Edie, what do you think?
Yeah, what do I think about this gender stuff? Actually, I never experienced the different way of treating me because I'm a woman. However, once I had a situation that, because many people say that I look very young, and I had kind of once the situation that the dude from the customer side told me that you are too young to teach me how to do adoption and change management project. Of course, it was kind of joke, but in my opinion, it shouldn't be said anyways. So I believe that it was more funny stuff than truly trying to do something bad to me. However, I think that this maybe the young face, it's not always helpful. However, when we talk about being woman or man, it's not a case, right? So I never experienced that. Just the matter of age.
Be sure to stand up for each other. So now we only have 6 minutes left. So I thought that you could all just give an ending speech, not an ending speech, but what's the last thing you would like to add here in this discussion? You're all thinking a lot, but let's do Adam first then.
All right, put me on the spot right here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, when it comes to adoption and change management, I think it's basically, if you're struggling with it, take a step back and ask yourself why. I mean, we've said a lot of good stuff here in this roundtable, and I would just point out yet again here, make sure not to put the responsibility on, and to make this an IT project. Make sure the whole business is involved, and find people from all over corners of your organization, and find, kind of those, that are eager to learn new technology, but also the people that are not so eager about new technology, and convince them that whatever you're implementing is a great thing. But because if you really make them think that is a great thing, everyone else will be like, whoa, and they will listen to them, because there are often people that other people listen to as well. I've learned. Just make sure to plan out, make a plan, make a communication plan, make a training plan, and it doesn't have to be like super, advanced, but just make sure to not forget about, the end users, because they're the ones that are going to use the product or service in the end. And if they don't want to use it, I mean, it's really hard today to kind of, force your users to use what you want them to use. It was easier before. Nowadays, when we're working from home, have our personal devices and all that, it's almost impossible, and it's not something you really want either.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Antje, what's your last?
Yeah, Adam said earlier, you can roll out teams, and you can click it together, do it in a few days, weeks, months, depending on the size of the organization. I think it's important to understand that adoption and change takes a really long time, and there is, in reality, not really an end date anymore, especially with all the constant updates that are coming. And I think my last statement is being patient is also an activity. And that's something that one needs to remember, because you communicate, you train, you reach out to the users, and every time you reach out to them, you leave a little seed of information with them, and then the situation has to change, different circumstances, and all of a sudden this blossoms into a flower, right? So being patient is an activity. Remember that, and just realize that you really might get the full ROI on an implementation of such a big platform like this months and maybe even years later.
Thank you. And the last words from you, Edyta.
I have two things in my head. The first one, as an adoption specialist, remember that you should adopt as well. So every organization is different. Therefore, we should remember that, of course, we have some tasks to be done in our project. However, everything depends on the customer and end users at the end. And the second thing that comes to my mind, what is very helpful, especially in my project, my projects I'm managing right now, defining the scenarios, the business scenarios. I've been talking about this on our last meeting, while I'm using design thinking methods to define the business scenarios. But the main purpose of this defining business scenarios is to understand why users are using Teams and how they have to use them in the future to prepare this Teams environment ready for them, to understand, to show them the tool that it's working, not the tool with the features.
Perfect. Then thank you, everybody. Thank you, Adam, Antje, for coming as guests today. It's really appreciated. Fantastic to see some new faces and very interesting discussions, topics. And before we move over to our finishing slides, where Edyta is going to promote our next meet, we just want to mention that we saw your comment here, Henry, about calling in Teams, and none of us has a great experience. So we are planning to post that on Twitter, and hopefully we'll get some great answers there. So make sure to follow ACM Teams Europe and stay posted there, and we hope we will get some good answers from our friends around in the community. So let's show our last slide then.
Yeah, tell us, what do you think about our meetings? What do you think about today's show? Your feedback is necessary to make these meetings even better. And of course, we see each other in December December 15th at 4 p.m. Central European Time. And what will be the next topic, you will see very soon on our social media. So please follow us on Twitter and other social medias. Check out our website as well. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next time.
Take care.